patient need to know at doctor's visit and what caregivers need to know at doctor visit. The patient will be Jonathan Mathias, the caregiver will be Cheryl Petruk.
Okay, so this role play has been designed to show kind of two different perspectives of essentially the same interaction between a doctor, a caregiver, and a patient. And luckily, that's kind of what we are. Okay. I just realized this is an extremely unfair idea, having just watched two amazing videos of professional actors who actually knew their lines, probably having done it a million times in front of the camera, and now we're going to do this for the first time ever, and we're definitely not professional actors. So we're going to give it a go. And what I'd really appreciate is other people's perspectives on what they see from this kind of role play, and thoughts about kind of what went well, what didn't go so well, etc. But we'll see how it goes, shall we? Okay. So it starts us coming into the doctor's office, and over.
Welcome, Mr. and Miss.
Hello, doctor. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Today we are here to discuss your diagnosis of cancer.
So I have.
Doctor, can you tell me more about this disease? How long does he live? Is he going to die tomorrow? What do I have to tell my children? Oh my children. How do I tell them their father has a cancer? What do I tell his sisters? What do I tell his mother?
Now, Mrs. Smith, calm down.
Okay. What do I need to know to help my husband? What do I need to know? Are there things that I need to be attentive to? His diet, his exercise? What can he do and what can't he do? I really need to know this.
For the most part, the patient can live a fairly normal life.
Okay, doctor. I need to be frank. I need to know more about this diagnosis. Life expectancy. How long does he have? How do I explain this to our family and friends? He doesn't look sick. How do I explain this? Will he need medication? What about treatments? What about wanting to have more children? We want to have more children. Don't tell Lynn.
That was news to me.
Do know. Wow, this is overwhelming. He has a cancer. Really hard to take. I'm really scared. I'm not sure I'm ready to let him die. I'm not sure I can handle looking after him. How bad is this going to really get?
For the most part, he will live a fairly normal life. Over time, more issues that will come up as a result of the disease that will need attentive to.
Gosh, doctor, this is all so overwhelming. I'm not all this news.
Perhaps we can get you some help help you with having some coping skills to help you manage through years. But again, the patient can live a normal life. I would suggest that you get in contact with the local patient advocacy group. Becoming part of a community will help you and the patient with knowledge of the disease and helping you become a shared part of your treatment in your journey with an ambient blood cancer.
Okay. So we're going to dive straight into the second one? Yeah. The second one then. Okay. So again, we're coming into the different doctor's office or the same doctor, whatever. Over to you, Doctor.
Welcome, Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
Thank you, Doctor.
Today we are here to discuss your diagnosis of having MPN blood cancer.
Okay, so I have a cancer. So can you tell me a bit more about it? Like, how long do I have to live? Am I going to die tomorrow? What do I tell my children? We've got really young children. How am I going to tell them I've got cancer? I'm going to tell the rest of my family, the people I work with, my employer.
Okay, where do you want to...
Okay, doctor. I need to know more about this diagnosis. What is my life expectancy? Do I have? How am I going to explain this? Don't look sick. Sometimes I don't even feel sick. So how do I explain this? What medication am I? What about if I want more children? I mean, can we do that?
This is so overwhelming.
Well, for the most part, a fairly normal life. Over time, he will have more issues that will come up, disease that will need to be more attentive to.
Doctor, this is so overwhelming. I'm just not sure I can handle it.
Get you some help with a psychologist to help you with having some coping, help you manage through the next few years. But again, the patient can live. I would suggest that you get in contact with the local group in your location. Becoming part of a community with a patient with acceptance and knowledge of the disease and helping you become a shared treatment and decision making in your journey with the MPN blood cancer.
Thank you. Okay. So the bottom to both of these is that knowledge of the disease, and there's lots of different aspects to the knowledge of the disease, whether it's the prognosis, the implications of it, the treatment, etc. Knowledge is one of the ways that you can try and gain control, something that genuinely you don't really have much control. At least it gives you the sense of having some control. And that kind of from both perspectives, from the perspective of the patient themselves, from the caregiver. And I think that this exercise was a sort of to demonstrate that process. So are there any thoughts about those kind of different perspectives at all? Some, quite realistic, or were there some aspects of that which were a bit, I don't know, what you've experienced yourselves or whatever?
It's okay now. I think it's not, no doctor will recommend at first moment the groups.
They wouldn't recommend what? Sorry.
Would not recommend do a group and ask for help, yeah? That's our wish.
Yeah.
Here, the patients here, or the patients' advocates.
I agree, and
yeah?
I think what you saw in just a few minutes there was probably a sort of compressed timeline. Maybe over time, the doctor would begin to suggest, in an idea, Werner, would begin to suggest that the patient and or look out to other people in the community. But you're absolutely right. It's very unlikely in the first meeting. What would you say, Stefan? Is that something that your practice talk about early on in the process, or bring the patient or the caregiver in touch with other patients?
Yes, we try to do it quite early. So to get in contact with psycho-oncology, and it depends on the patient whether he take on this he would choose another way. But for us, it's important.
What was your experience, Cheryl, of that real-life interaction? I mean, from the point of view of being put in touch with other groups or with the psychological.
So that's why we started the Canadian MPN network, because we didn't have anything. And yes, Werner, you're right. That would be my dream, is that the first thing the doctor would say, let's get you some help. But even psychological help wasn't offered right up front. And it wasn't until my husband's GP, I said to her, he needs some help. He needs to talk to a counselor late in his journey. It wasn't until probably about 2 months before he passed that he actually got help he needed. And so we went many years without any psychological help. Want to accept it, and B, it was never offered. So, you know, you can ask the doctors, and he never asked for it. I knew he needed help, but I couldn't ask on his behalf. Have to be willing to accept the psychological help. And I think that's where we can encourage the community to offer the psychological help right up front. That can be in a guideline that as soon as somebody gets a diagnosis with an MPN, the first thing they do is they offer the help. Now, if the patient decides not to take it, that's one thing, but at least it's already identified, because getting that diagnosis, there's so much trepidation, so many questions that a patient has, and a caregiver and family, they don't know how to answer them.
Yvonne, unfair, but I'm going to ask you if, in your experience, at what point in the process, if ever, do you start suggesting that a caregiver starts reaching out to more kind of psychosocial care?
Is this on? Yes, it is on.
Yeah.
The way we work is you were in that, and that was the nurse.
That's
by the
the
way,
nurse, you're right.
And but quite often we would be that actually there was psychological, and quite often actually once the doctor has done their bit, you know, you've got this condition, we will then take them away into another room and work a little bit harder with them, and that's when you will start picking up, okay, this person's going to struggle a bit here, and actually, you know, start gently mentioning health psychology, and it's really important that you say they're not psychiatrists,
Right.
They're not going to tell you you're mentally ill, they're going to help you with your coping mechanisms, because that's another thing you have to be very careful with. People don't understand the difference.
Yeah.
So
I can imagine it from my point of view. If I was in that room, which I've been in, and so in the first 5 minutes, I've told I've got cancer, right? And maybe it's not in the next 5 minutes. Maybe it's the next meeting or the 2 meetings after that. You know, and then the doctor goes, "I think you should see a psychologist." Frankly, my own personal reaction would have been, what, you've just told me I've got cancer, and now you think I'm nuts as well? You know, it'd be kind of like, almost like a double whammy. And I think for some people, the idea that they need to kind of have almost like a different form of treatment on top of the MPN itself is a second barrier to kind of get over. And I think you're absolutely right, Yvonne. I think the way that is kind of put to patients is a crucial step in that process. And it, you know, because once a patient has, or the caregiver has a kind of erected a barrier to that potentially very, very useful process, then it takes some work to get the barrier down again. That's kind of, I'm just kind of imagining the way that would play out for me. maybe in a slightly younger version of myself when I was a bit more kind of gung-ho about these things. But that's just one patient's perspective. But as you say, I think it takes quite skilled professionals to kind of judge that situation and choose the right language, etc. And I think we would probably, most of us recognize that we don't really live in that ideal world. Any other points from... Yeah. Go for it. Really? You... Right. Right. Yeah. Going back to that kind of initial meeting and that initial conversation with the doctor, are you saying that a little less ambiguity, a little less kind of moving around the subject would have been welcome to you in that situation? Would you have liked the kind of the hard facts up front a bit more? Is that what you're saying? Hmm. Or maybe that was true, right? Okay. No, fair point. Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. It's a bit of a moment, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. Werner. The one with the... All right. The one with the thing that looks a bit like a Wi-Fi. Okay, all right. Sorry.
I had a conversation with Lucia on the coffee break, and she told me she has to give the permission to use the word cancer.
Up on that myself, actually. Yeah. Yeah, Rymaker, yeah.
And he told us all his students first ask the patient what he knows about the disease. Yeah? For everybody's googling meanwhile. Yeah? What he knows, that's better. And that's we are missing this. And you see yourself, they don't get credit points for
Right.
and they want to change it. For it's important the doctors should know how to act with patients.
Very good. Any other points? I think we're done. The thing's out of time. Would it be okay if I finished with a little bit of humour? Absolutely. Okay. It's relevant. It's not just a joke. So earlier I had to go through this process all over again with another and so I go into the urologist's office, and I'd had all the tests and the biopsy and everything, and so I go in there and I pretty much know but I kind of let the doctor do his thing. He's about 10 minutes into this kind of letting me, finding out permission, whether he could use the C word, etc. And to be honest, I was being a little bit cruel at this point, because I'm like, let it do the whole thing. This is a young guy. He's probably like 27 years old or something. And I probably should have told him earlier, listen, I've heard all this. I know what we're leading up to here. I kind of got the idea of what he was going to me. And I probably should have said, I know what I know is I'm comfortable with it. I kind of, by then he'd given me and everything, so I'd done my reading, so I knew that it, to the chase, this is not a cancer that's going to kill me either. Just like ET my prostate cancer isn't going to kill me either, at least not this year. Knew that it wasn't going to be a, life-threatening immediate diagnosis, but just seeing it from that other perspective was just kind of a moment. And it all turned out fine, and we had a laugh about it at the end of the meeting. It was just very, very interesting to kind of see it from a very different round. But yeah, exactly. It did make him a little bit, which is slightly embarrassing. But anyway, I thought I'd leave you with that as a little humorous anecdote. Anyway, all right. Thank you very much to everybody.
Hello. The next session shall be psychological impact.